know, this summer at the movies proved that despite all those ads, size doesn't matter to film fans. Godzilla, the $100 million monster movie with the equally expensive ad campaign, flopped. Another Hollywood blockbuster that went bust. So tonight, we take you to a little company here in New York that successfully made monster movies for years on shoestring budgets that would make a major mogul swallow his cigar. This small independent studio has developed a legion of loyal fans, and after tonight, you may be one of them. So buckle your seatbelts. You're about to be traumatized. In a New York neighborhood once known as Hell's Kitchen, you'll find a funky 4-floor walk-up. This is the unlikely headquarters of Hollywood on the Hudson.
Well, actually, this building originally was a Johnson and I.M. glass and steel structure.
Really?
We totally renovated it, and we brought it back to its original landmark modest statement.
That's Lloyd Kaufman, and this is his movie company. First of all, what does Troma mean?
Troma means excellence on celluloid, from the ancient Latin.
Okay, but in plain English, Troma means B-movies, and the B in this case means blood, breasts, and beasts. A Troma classic, nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell, or perhaps something a bit more, well, toxic. Toxic Avenger is about a nerd who falls into a vat of toxic waste and comes out a deformed do-gooder.
Toxic Avenger is the only movie in the history of cinema which contains a full head-crushing scene, female masturbation, dismemberment, a dog being blown away with a shotgun. It's the only film of that kind that was made into a children's cartoon show.
This'll teach you to mess with a hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength.
Indeed, since it came out in 1981, it's made millions, inspired 2 sequels, sold more than 200,000 videos, and spawned enough merchandise to shame Godzilla. To be fair, Troma's also paid tribute to no less than Shakespeare.
Parting in such sweet sorrow.
Totally sucks.
In the recent Romeo and Juliet, all the romance and tragedy of the original.
Not to mention the car crashes, dismemberment, and kinky sex that Shakespeare always wanted but never had.
Somewhere, the bard is smiling.
So's Lloyd, but make no mistake, he takes Troma seriously.
You have to look at us as artists, even though the movies we make incorrectly may not be taken as art.
You may consider yourselves artists, but then when the average person sees that you're making what is it, cat girls in heat and surf Nazis must die.
Excuse me, teenage cat girls in heat.
I apologize. That doesn't exactly sound like high art.
If art comes from the heart and the soul, there's no question that the body of work that Troma has created is from our hearts and souls, and that may be just the reason why Troma has staggered along, has been so successful all these years.
Now at this point, you're probably asking yourself, who in the world actually watches this stuff? You may be sorry you asked. This is ground zero for hardcore Troma Nights, a sci-fi and horror fan convention in Secaucus, New Jersey. Here you'll find freaks, geeks, slackers, bikers, biters, the funky, the chunky, the hairy, and the scary. Troma's display is a magnet for the devoted.
They're not for everybody. Like, my mom definitely wouldn't watch these types of films, but me and my brothers go nuts. We sit there, we watch them, we laugh, we cry, we rejoice.
Speaking of which, there's Lloyd, and over there, Troma's co-founder, Michael Hers. Well, that's really an actor hired to play Hers, who avoids publicity as much as his partner craves it. By the way, they look nothing alike.
It's hard for me to tell because, you know, I don't look at myself in the mirror that often.
Coming here is a cheap way to promote the product, and at Troma, the formula for success is maximum impact from minimum budget. Peter George directed Surf Nazis Must Die.
There's only one gun in the movie that's actually used. Instead of having a lot of fancy-looking high-tech weaponry, we have a bunch of people running around with kitchen knives.
Along with cheap special effects, there are unknown actors. Among those who got their first break at Troma,
this kid has definite potential.
Oscar winners such as director Oliver Stone, actress Marissa Tomei, actors Robert De Niro and Kevin Costner.
Well, that's a name I'm not going to forget. But he is in Sizzle Beach, USA.
Here we are, Sizzle Beach, USA. Hot sand, hot bodies,
and
hot nights.
Kevin Costner obviously loved Sizzle Beach and the water, because what did he do a few years later for $200 million? Waterworld.
Hoping to get her big break is Tiffany Shepis, who calls herself a Tromette.
A Tromette is someone who basically is known for their very, very large brains.
Hoffman's even cast his own kids in the battlefield epic, Troma's War.
I was kidnapped from my fake, acting mother, and big men with, like, machine guns came in, they kidnapped me, and my mom was, like, she was sort of worried, because I was, like, crying and stuff, and I was only 18 months old.
And Charlotte, what was your debut?
I think I was blown up into a tree and kidnapped, and I was blind.
With such low-cost talent and effects, the average Troma film costs about $350,000 to shoot, or what Leo DiCaprio probably spends just on hair gel.
It's obscene to be spending $50 million or $200 million or whatever it takes these days to make a Hollywood movie on something as frivolous as a movie. We think that movies should be made on modest budgets and that school teachers ought to be getting the money.
Now, Kaufman's not the first to succeed by making movies on the cheap. That was his mentor, the legendary king of the bees, Roger Corman.
Well, it's very weird because Lloyd talks a blue streak, makes the wildest films of anybody I know, but is actually an honors graduate of Yale with an impeccable academic background.
That's true. In fact, Kaufman majored in Chinese studies and dabbled in the stock market before starting Troma.
He truly walks to the beat of a different drummer. It's kind of a jazz drummer, but a different genre.
Pat Kaufman is Lloyd's wife of 24 years, and get this, New York State Film Commissioner. She deals with all those big-budget filmmakers her husband hates.
Well, now, let's just remember that New York is the capital of the independent film world, and I don't think there's any studio that's longer lasting and made more of an imprint in the independent world than Troma.
Indeed, trashy, tasteless Troma has earned awards and retrospectives from no less than Cinémathèque Française, the British Film Institute, and
Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. There's no question Troma will...
Troma film at the Kennedy Center?
We had a retrospective there.
Troma films even have a fan in Janet Maslin, the highly respected film critic of the New York Times.
I think they're silly in a way that's absolutely undemanding, and they're kind of harmless too, and I think that's part of their appeal. They're not mean and violent. There's so many things now that are foolish and destructive, and they really have a weird sort of sweetness, I think.
DVDs, everybody!
Maybe it's the sweet smell of success.
Here, butt crack.
If so, the Troma aroma has gone global. The Cannes Film Festival. With its topless babes and parade of producers, promoters, and paparazzi, Kaufman's here every year cutting distribution deals.
You met Killer Condom Man? He's the star of Killer Condom.
Silly stuff? Sure, but to buyers from overseas, Troma's a dependable, profitable brand name. And with its growing film library, video business, and merchandising, as well as plans for a global TV channel, Kaufman boasts it's as potent a brand as Disney.
They've got Mickey Mouse, you've got the Toxic Avenger.
Exactly. And Toxie can kick the Mickey's butt.
Well, that aside, it's worth noting that even if movies like Chopper Chicks and Zombie Town and Blood-Sucking Freaks aren't exactly Oscar bait, Troma does play an important role in the film industry as one of the last of the independents.
The giant international conglomerates have taken over everything. The word independent has been totally corrupted.
In other words, what we think of as small art house films are really put out by big studios.
That movie that won the Oscar last year, the very boring one.
Oh, The English Patient.
Yeah, that's it. That was not an independent movie.
It was released by Miramax, which is owned by Disney, just as Searchlight is part of Fox, October is owned by Universal, New Line by Time Warner, and so on.
There are only a small number of independents, and our ranks are dwindling. Either they join major studios, as New Line, Miramax have done, or in some cases, they go out of business.
So how has Troma survived? Well, its cheaply made, well-promoted junk movies compete in an arena the big boys usually ignore. But it's more than that.
We take our movies very seriously. We do not take ourselves seriously.
Yeah, but that's not quite it either. For all the cheesy, sleazy crudity and nudity, Troma Films offers something Hollywood has largely lost.
That crazy B-movie energy, and these guys still have it. Clearly they love movies. They have a sense of humor which will not die. And you know, I'm glad that they're out there keeping the fringe vital and alive.
Look out! We should add that Lloyd Kaufman has written a book called All I Need to Know About Filmmaking, I Learned from the Toxic Avenger. It's available now at bookstores. Oh, and next May, a new Troma movie called Terror Firma will be released, in which Lloyd stars as a wacky B-movie director who sounds a lot like Lloyd Kaufman. Now that's frightening.